Hello and welcome back to the definitive Starship review series without access to a proper table. That's hard to do with big models, where today, if you're looking at this and going, man, I hate these Nacelle clips, I will never buy it, don't leave right now, because I will address the clips. I'll talk more about them probably the end of the video. You can use the chapters to skip ahead if you want, but I just want to show you a picture such as this one, which, no, is not Photoshop. This is an actual model someone has converted to have floating nacelles using plastic. You can just about see it if you want. I've seen pictures of them on the stand where, like, the shadow as well has floating nacelles. It's gorgeous. You can do it pretty easily with just some plastic and stuff. I'll address it later. However, I'm going to review this model largely with the clips, because that is what you get in the box. You don't need any skills, you just will have this model. Yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way pretty quick. And I also want to clarify that this is the Discovery Refit XL, not the one from the U.S. collection, issue 11. This is the XL Discovery-A, which also next to the XL Discovery. I have not seen this one in a while. But yes, finally, a 32nd century ship on the channel. People who have been watching my content know I adore this style. I am very happy to finally get one, even if it's not from the U.S. collection, and I am eager to buy all of them as soon as I have the money to get that backlog. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself because, of course, I have to say before any further review that I am part of the Eaglemoss affiliate program, which means if you choose to purchase either of these models because of this video, there's a link in the description. That is an affiliate link, meaning that I will get a 7% commission on the sale of the model. I'm allowed to say whatever the heck I want about these ships, and I still purchase them with my own money. However, just be aware there is a monetary incentive for me to tell you to go buy these ships. But yes, as is tradition to this channel, we are going to start not by killing that guy's name, who I should know, but by our size comparisons, which, thankfully, that nacelle is now gone. Thankfully, it's really easy with this model, because the Discovery is exactly the same size as the Discovery, which is a bit weird to say, but yes, these models are the same scale, and so you'll have them side by side. They're both exactly the same size, even down to, like, the nacelles and stuff are exactly the same length. Saucers. I think the refit saucer is actually a bit, like the tiniest bit bigger, baby. And of course, some of the proportions have, not proportions, but the detailings have changed, but size-wise, exactly the same. If you own the XL Discovery, you know the size for the refit. However, in our more traditional standard rulers, these big models are always hard to do size comparisons for. It is also a bit longer than the Sovereign class XL Enterprise D. Again, my apologies, I can't really get this in frame just from the model's size. But yes, that is probably a good, the nacelles are lined up end to end. That is probably a good size comparison. And I'd like to point out, because it's happening a lot right now, that these clips are actually usually really secure, but I am, like, flinging this model about, which you're not intended to do. And also I keep bumping things, like these mugs, because it's so big. So don't be dissuaded by how easily these are popping off. They're actually really secure. But as I said, I will get more in detail into the clips later in the video, near the end. In our final size comparison, it's been a long time, but the original Enterprise, again, the Discovery, is quite a bit longer than that, and it is going to be the same size for the TMP Enterprise, which I also have here, and the Strange New Worlds Enterprise. As soon as Strange New Worlds starts, I switch over to this Enterprise. But yes, what has changed with the refit? Well, quite obviously, it's so shiny. Not like a Riemann in the dark, like a Kelpian. I don't know. It's just very shiny. This is a model that when I first saw it, the Eaglemoss, like the tease, is actually the U.S. collection. I did not realize this ship was still brown. I didn't. In season 3, it looked very dark gray. You can see it when you know it's brown, but I went, that looks awful. It's brown. It just doesn't work. It is never going to look good. What the pictures online evidently don't capture is not only in my hand does this feel like, yes, this is the perfect color, which is a slightly different shade from the original, which I have reviewed this before on the channel. There's a link, probably an iCard already if you want to watch it, but I'm largely going to be focusing on this one. But what the pictures online don't show is that shine. You can see it's under film lighting conditions, but honestly, it's not that different from what it would be in real life. Every bit of this has got sheen and shine. The weathering, the different colorings. I mean, when I mentioned this in my Cerritos review, when I pulled this out of the box, I was expecting to like it. I like the ship. I like the 32nd century style, even though this is more Discovery style. Just putting that 32nd century on it is great. I expected to like it, but when I pulled it out, it's the first model in a long while, that I went, wow. I was just blown away by it. It might be the best first impression a model has ever made on me. I love it. Like, the Discovery original model is pretty good. I mean, it's the Discovery. I quite like the ship design. It's not my favorite. It's definitely grown on me. I mean, the highlights are good, but it's just like, yeah, that's a Discovery. That's a solid model. This one was just wow. I'm amazed by what they've done with this. So we're going to go into the details of what exactly they've done. And to do that, just for my own simplicity, I'm actually going to remove the cells, the nacelles, and just look at it like this. It's going to look very strange, but it's just going to help me move around it. And you can get a better look at what's hiding under the clips. And you can also cut your pizzas. Don't do that, but you could cut your pizzas with it. First off, let's start with the saucer, and we'll get the one negative of this ship out of the way, is that the registry, and I think it's quite like this in the show as well, is very hard to read. I mean, unless you're really up there looking at it, you can't see it. It's even kind of hard to get the lighting right with the camera under the professional lighting. It's very hard to see. It is there. It'd almost be better if it wasn't. Or maybe if it was on this bit, that's more a problem with the show than it is the model. I mean, they have done what the show does. People have also complained on the bottom. As you can see, you can still read that. That is not the traditional layout. Here you go. You can see if I hold the original Enterprise down, typically the lettering kind of goes backwards. It would be upside down from this perspective when you're looking at the bottom. In the actual show, it's like this. So again, it's accurate, but there's been a fair amount of annoyance and complaints. It does look kind of backwards just because we're so used to the other way, but it's also not very legible or noticeable. I'm all right with it. I mean, it's screen accurate, and really, at what angle, like that angle, are you displaying this ship on? I mean, that's all right, but even if it's above your eye level, it's probably going to be more like that. You won't really notice it. But going on all the way around the saucer, you've got these hatches. My brain wants to say they open up. I don't actually know what they're for, but the bit that spins when it jumps, all these bits are here, and it's just the same nice detailed pattern of, I guess, just greeblies, you'd call it, with some general panel working on the side that's got that beautiful, there's light browns, dark browns, there's the gray weathering, white weathering, the sheen. Again, I'm just completely blown away. You also have what I believe is going to be windowing. It actually might be phasers, but I'm pretty sure it's windowing all the way along the inside of here. Well, there are some gaps, but yeah, the nice viewports. Not on the outside, so maybe it is phasers. I'm not sure. But some of you might notice, and I quite love this in Discovery, in an era where they do have those personal transporters, is they've made that gap. They've gotten rid of these kind of connector bits, and so it's just free-floating, which I think works beautifully in the 32nd century style. I know it's a somewhat controversial era, and this is not quite 32nd century, being a refit, but it is my favorite era of starship design, and let's just rescue Kang. I think that was it. I don't know. But yeah, the blue highlight in here as well is definitely, it's real subtle. You almost don't consciously notice it, but it adds so much to the model. The underside is largely the same, but this bridge science dome, I always want to call it that. I think it's the yellow underneath. This little dome in the middle, I swear is flatter than it is in the original. You can see a nice proper bowl here, like a sphere, maybe with a bump on the top. But in the refit, it's more streamlined. It does not poke out between the saucer nearly as much, which is a look I like. It's definitely different styles. I mean, it really is. The Discovery is understandably a great template for the whole era. I mean, it really fits. Whereas the Discovery-A just has so much of that 32nd century-ness in it. Despite being the refit, I'd imagine it probably came after some of the normal standard designs, but it looks very good on this. It kind of takes getting used to, I guess. That's not the bump up here. I don't know. Maybe I would have done a dome up there as opposed to just as flat as this is. But the underside looks really good with these little science domes that they're tend to call. No idea what they're for, but everything from like the NX to this has got their science dome. Moving down to the neck, I actually hadn't noticed it until I got this model. But the neck has changed on the original Discovery. It was kind of just this 2D, this rectangle from the top that's very flat all over. You've got this kind of bump here. On the Discovery-A, it's actually more almost Cobra style, where you can see it's going to V out here, and it's going to get thicker at the top. But also from the side, there you can kind of see it a bit. The neck gets thick, it like thins out as it goes from the top to the bottom, a lot like the Enterprise D actually, but angular. It's the Enterprise D's neck, but angular. It slopes. Well, here, that's good. You can see it sloping. God, it's very D looking at it now. It's even got indents in here. It's a much more interesting neck. It's thicker right here along this connection. And of course, you have this much more prominent main connection going from the secondary to primary hull. And underneath, it's also just a bit thicker. I think it looks better, and especially for the style, it's very fitting. But I had not noticed that. It's a very nice touch. Moving down to the main body, they've kept the general style of Discovery's kind of angular V-shapeness, but cranked it up to 11 and made it industrially futuristic. I mean, it's such a weird thing to try and define, but I adore it. You've got kind of hard to film under such the sheen in the camera, but you've got the darker bits still kind of maintaining that V shape, but a lot more subtle because of all these lines that just kind of gonna go up and spew out. I mean, all at these V angles, I don't know, 45, 60 degrees, something that I mean, again, I just adore this pattern they've chose. The season 3 Discovery team, I mean, modern Star Trek VFX team is usually really good, but the season 3 one in particular, when you consider lockdown protocols as well, personal computers, they went by far above and beyond on something that I thought would be impossible. Like, I just adore this ship in person. It's almost better than it is in the show, because you can really appreciate all the detailing and lighting that you don't usually get in the space scenes that are very dark. Obviously, you've got your bottle openers, where they do weird warp field such, the cutouts. I'm not usually a big fan of cutouts in these ships, but in the 32nd century, I adore it, because it's kind of got that reasoning of the detached nacelles, warp field stuff is happening in there. I think the Enterprise Klingon era stuff had that as well. But when you give it that kind of functionality, that meaning, I adore it. Not too detailed in the rims here. I mean, it doesn't have to be. Oh, no. No, I take it back. They're embossed. There's bumps on there. Not this side. That's the boring side. But, everywhere else it's just kind of too thin to really put detail, but they even had it there. I guess normally it would be kind of obstructed by the clips, so yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's just so much detail I'm impressed with. And of course, this lovely darker gray bit here is a very nice touch. Going to the back, it's largely the same, actually. I guess impulse technology doesn't change much over the centuries. I want to say it's a bit thinner. It might just be the edging, that this one has a more defined edge. The impulse engines are definitely thinner, but it's really hard to say. It's pretty close. So you can see this one's here, just got some grading, impulse, the shuttle bay door. This one's shuttle bay door is smaller, or rather Book's garage, I guess you would call it. The pattern is a bit different on the door. There we go. I quite like it though. There isn't any detailing on the impulse engines, but they're thinner. It looks nice. There's a bit of emboss, indenting, and just general greebly panel work that looks quite nice. Moving on to the nacelle, specifically the port nacelle. but they are, as far as I can tell, symmetrical, so I'm very careful not to confuse them. You've got the lovely blue glow that the 32nd century has. Admittedly, I will point out here, it is kind of concealed a bit more when you have the clips on, but from the side, it is a lot better. As I said, though, there are ways to kind of get rid of it. And that's really the standout feature, is this lovely angular, futuristic, it's almost an angular, but kind of feels curvy and natural that I adore about the 32nd century's aesthetics. But just general greeblies, bumps along here in the top, just the bumps. You actually have fins, sort of like on the original Enterprise, which I guess are on the original Discovery. You can see just a comparison here of the nacelles. They're largely kept the same. I guess this one gets a bit fat and thins out because they detach, though. That makes sense, because this one's glued to the hull, this one floats. But just generally, a bit more interesting and textured. Of course, the bottom's changed much, a lot. Actually, it's flat here, but this one has the kind of V shape, but changed a lot because of that engine glow, nacelle glow, just pushed down from what it was originally. And the front, no longer that very distinct Discovery style, but is an angular. It screams so much. It just feels right. I think it's going off of a lot of what the modern present day depictions of like future should look like, but it also speaks to Star Trek, and I just adore it. I kind of like, actually, I've just realized there's no Bassard collector. I like that, actually, in the 32nd century. Just one of those little ways where it's simplified. We don't need them anymore. I don't know if that's true for every ship, but I think it does look quite good here. I have just realized from the blue, I forgot to analyze Discovery's deflector dish. No more antenna or anything. It's that flat, kind of angled back blue style. Looks really good here. I don't know if there might be more detail in the actual show, but at the scale, I mean, I'm pretty sure, actually, if you look at that, it has loads of little bumps that might be painting or modeling mistakes. I don't know if you can make it, but it is slightly textured, actually, along the whole rim of here. And it does have indenting on here. It's quite good. The stand is basically the same as the Discovery-A's. It's slightly different, a bit longer, but it works really well. But now it's the time to talk about the clips, and I actually had to look up how this was done, because I was struggling putting them on. They're actually one-sided. This clip cannot go on this nacelle. Now, you might think it can, but that's the bit that struggled with me for a bit. You want these holes, like here and here on the top, for very specific reasons. If you look on the Discovery, there are these little bumps right here that are actually used to align this part of the clip onto Discovery. And you see it lines up with the edge of the model as well, but you can't move that. I mean, if you force it, it'll eventually jump, but it is in this place. You cannot move it. It will not be misaligned, which is wonderful. These nacelles, you actually can put them in anyway. It's going to bend the plastic, might break it. I don't want to push it. But if you look on the nacelle, it also has these two bumps here and there, and that lines up exactly with this hole. So you line those up. You do push it in if you feel, listen, there you go. There is a bit of a click, like it does hold it tight, but then this doesn't move forward and back. This is the right length. You're not going to get it too far forward or back. You will if you get rid of the clips and try and mess around it, but you can still use that to line up. Like, you can still get it close enough. And of course, because both of these line up, the nacelles are always going to be exactly symmetric if you're using the clips. They're actually a lot more intelligently designed than I originally thought. The problem is, yeah, you don't really get the feel of a detached nacelle. Like, this is better than the one without the clip. And even that picture, I might throw it up again, of the plastic nacelle, the separated plastic nacelle, is so much better. But you're also answering the question, like, is it better without the clips? Yes, like, unquestionably. You know what else is true? This model is way better without the stand, if it just hovered there and you didn't have to cover the body. But we do acknowledge the need for the stand. For the Discovery, could they have done a better stand? Like, maybe like the Le Guin has this, where it comes out and holds the nacelles, or maybe down here. Maybe something coming out here holding it up would, but I think the question is, does that eat into the actual costs? and then you might not be able to have as much of this detail in there. I think it probably would for the Discovery. There's some like the Nog has clips that still look pretty floaty, and the LeGuin, of course, has amazing ones. I'm amazed at how big they've made that stand. The thing is, people are talking, oh, you could have a plastic bit that just kind of goes here, literally, just like spans here to here and connects them that way. Well, then it's a bit odd on here, like, you'd kind of have to glue it or something, and it could easily break off. You need to deal with replacements then, or people complaining that it's broken. You could have a pipe that goes in here and slots in. But then you're cutting into the model. You're just going to see that hole. It's going to look awful. Like, it's a very difficult problem. As soon as I saw the first floating nacelles, like on the Star Trek show, my first thought was, God, Eaglemoss is going to hate that. But if you consider how easy it is to get these to actually float better without too many skills or much cost. If you think about the people who don't really want to deal with that and just go, I want to buy it and it works, because there are definitely those kind of people. I think this is probably the best solution they could have come up with. They maybe could have made bits like this smaller, but then it is less secure. You could probably tilt it out more. Like, this is probably about the minimum to still have it easily securable. But again, like, you know, I do have a fair bit more tools than the average person, but here's a flat water bottle. I think it was specifically one of the Naked brands, but I wouldn't recommend it because it has these grooves that I just, you know, ripped the plastic off, discovered there were grooves. Attack this with some normal household scissors. And I mean, back from my robotics days, I have this pair of pliers just at hand. Like, I don't know where my other pair is, but I have another sharper pair. The picture I showed you actually used an X-Acto knife, which again, pretty cheap. And if you're going to buy a lot of these, is a worthwhile investment. But like just a few bucks for a thin water bottle with some clear plastic. Clean it out. I don't know what plastic that picture I showed you was. Like, you can definitely get clearer plastic and more better modeling plastic. It is a bit more complicated because you do have to kind of bend the plastic because this isn't a smooth surface unless you want to live with it slightly elevated. But that picture I showed you was an unknown type of plastic and tape. Literally just Scotch tape on the bottom. And you could glue it if you want. Of course, the obvious solution many have done is just glue it. Like, that looks pretty good. You can't just glue it and have not detached nacelles, which also fixes the problem if you just don't like detached nacelles. But if you think even something like that, where like this plastic is pretty foggy, it's not great, but if you can kind of imagine removing the extra water bottle, that's real good. And especially it's under film light, it's a bit more glaring. If it's just standing there, here you go. If you just think of a model like this, well, that's gonna be much better than the clips, and it's the super cheap, easy solution that you don't need skills to do that. I mean, just look at what I've done to the top of this water bottle. This was not skillful. This was a real hard plastic. I would not recommend the Naked brand for this. Like, look for something maybe a bit easier, without ridges, so you have more, but this is going to get me through, like, maybe even the entire Eaglemoss collection. And just a bit more skill, you know, if you have it, a bit more research, you can do it really well. If I can get it to work well, I will probably upload some tutorial video on how to get these nacelles to look real detached, without deforming the model like with glue or stuff. I don't have it now. One, for time, I've actually got to run really quick. But also, because I have to put this in the box for a move soon, and if I tape, I'd have to break it again anyways, because the box comes with these separated. Yeah, I think it's a good solution, because you want that out of the box, it just works. You really want that for a model like this. You don't want someone to have to buy plastic and actually craft that. But, like, anyone can make something pretty good. Like, you know, it might be a little misaligned, but then again, it's how much do you want to put to actually get that perfection that this offers in terms of alignment and everything. And then, as a lot of people do, if you have the skills to really do it better, really get right plastic, X-Acto knives, and make them look beautiful, you can genuinely make it. Well, the first time I saw pictures like that, and I'll dig through others where the same person did like the Voyager J and stuff, I thought it was photoshopped. I saw these a good 5 times before I read the caption that it was not. It was actually the model. And if you look very closely, in certain parts, you can see the plastic and you know it is not the model. I hope I can get that picture of the silhouette up with the floating nacelles, because it's just magic. And you could make the same argument as well, like, Eaglemoss doesn't have to bother painting the models because you could paint them yourself. Like, yes, You could, but usually it's not going to look as good as this if you try and paint it yourself. Or this one's not so much painted. But yeah, for people who have the skills to do those, you could make amazing things. And for people who don't, well, you can make pretty good alternatives. And so yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit more faith. I'm sure other people have done tutorials now to make it floating. Otherwise, I've probably linked it somewhere, like an iCard now, if I've gone and done it after making this video. But I hope you enjoy it. So would I recommend the Discovery-A? Yes. I mean, it is one of my favorite models, and it's not even one of my favorite Star Trek ships. I adore it. It is fantastic. It blew me away right out of the box. Would I recommend it over the standard size Discovery? No idea. There's an iCard here if I've reviewed that. I don't own it. And again, they look nice together. It plays well with the other Discoveries. I adore this model, and even with the price increase, well worth the money. And with that, I hope you enjoyed. Jupiter Station's review will be next week as advertised. If there's anything else you'd like me to review, though, just ask in the comments. I own more than half of Eaglemoss's entire Star Trek range, including the entire Discovery collection. With that, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and if you really want to see me try and put together these nacelles in a video or something, let me know, because then I'm more likely to do it, honestly. It'd probably be a while before I'd get around to it on my own with this model, so let me know if that's something you really want to see. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time!